It's 4 days to the general election in Nigeria. And as preparations are underway, the international community is not leaving any stone unturned in monitoring and ensuring a free, fair, and credible election is achieved in Nigeria by 25th of February 2023. However, the British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Catriona Laing, has stated that the United Kingdom is ready to work with the winner of the 2023 presidential election. She further stated that the UK-Nigeria partnership is very strong and deep, and that the UK will definitely ensure that Nigeria succeeds with regard to democracy and governance. Joining us now on this show from our Abuja studio is Catriona Laing, British High Commissioner to Nigeria. Good morning, Ms. Laing, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be on the morning show.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I mean, you've been quoted in the papers as saying that the UK government is concerned that there may be likely post-election violence, and that whoever, promotes this, will not be allowed to have access to the United Kingdom. If you could just tell us about that, and whether in fact there is a mechanism in place for concerned citizens to report some persons to the British High Commission, because some of us probably know some people who have been promoting hatred and vitriol in the course of these preparations for elections.
Well, thank you. Yes, but before I answer that specific question, just let me put it in context. I think, the world is watching this election in Nigeria. It's hugely important. You're the largest democracy in Africa, in a region which has seen some democratic backsliding. So it matters for every citizen of Nigeria, to the region and to the world. And generally, I can say we're very pleased with the progress of Nigeria's democratic journey. Each election has made some improvements on process, particularly through improvements INEC's made. You've got a vibrant civil society who's very good at calling things out. So overall, what we're looking for in this election is more progress and a credible, peaceful and secure election. So having set that scene, in terms of insecurity specifically, there have been a relatively high number of pre-election incidents, higher than in the last election, I think almost double. So that's the period we're in now, still as we enter the run-up to the election. And as you mentioned, some of that has also been hate speak online. There'll be the period of the election itself, the day of the election, and obviously the gubernatorial elections. And there may be different kinds of violence in different places, depending on the context, the backdrop, and how close perhaps the election is. And then, as I mentioned in an earlier briefing, there's the post-election period, and we've seen this in the past in Nigeria. And this is really a crucial message to get out, and I've been saying it to all the presidential candidates. They have a really important responsibility to ensure that their supporters, whilst we want them to come out and be enthusiastic and support their candidate, that's absolutely right, that the result has to be respected. There's only one poll that counts, that's the poll on the day, and there has to be a winner and there's going to be some losers. So we hope there won't be post-election violence. So it was just really for me to set out our concerns about that, but it can be avoided, and any objections and concerns can and should be taken through the judicial process. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Laing. You have reiterated that the British government has resolved to sanction politicians who incite violence, and that even British politicians, Nigerian British politicians, would not be exempt. This is not the first time this promise has been made. In the last cycle of elections and previous elections, we've had assurances from the British government that this would be part of their support to promoting a violence-free election. I'd like you to share with Nigerians, have there been any such sanctions made, and who are some of these people as a deterrent to people who perhaps might want to incite violence?
So again, just to explain the policy on this, and it's no different than in previous elections. I was here for the last election and I made a previous statement and our ministers did. So our policy is very similar to the Americans, so that we're watching very closely, and if we have evidence to suggest that an individual who isn't necessarily a politician, by the way, it could be somebody from the security side, it could be an individual citizen, it's not directed specifically at politicians. If anybody has incited violence or indeed directly participated in violence, we can and will consider using our visa program to prevent that person travelling to the UK. We also have a new tool in our armoury, which is human rights related sanctions can be placed on an individual. You will see later this morning a statement on the elections from our Development Minister and African Minister, Andrew Mitchell, and there'll be a clear statement on this which will be coming out this morning.
Okay, so does that also involve, and I know maybe this might be for also like your American counterparts, does this also involve people in the judiciary? Because there was a story recently that broke about a certain politician saying that, you know, some people in the judiciary were stopped from getting the visa to go into America. So this dragnet, will it also involve people in the judiciary, you know, all sorts of decision taking that can be at an anathema to democracy and the likes? You know, would they also be sanctioned in all of this?
So obviously I can't comment on the specific US case. I'm not going to say who's in and who's out, because the point of this is that it can be applied to anybody who's involved in undermining the democratic process, and in particular those who are inciting violence or conducting violent acts. But it can go wider. Hate speak and so on could be picked up through this. So anybody, any individual in any walk of life who's undermining the democratic process. And just to add, we have used this tool before. I cannot say who this has been directed to for data protection reasons, obviously. But of course, the point, as you mentioned, is for this to be a deterrent. We don't want to use this tool. We want Nigeria's elections to be peaceful. So this is really just an indication that we are watching closely, and we have this tool in our armory should we have to use it.
Well, you've had meetings with INEC officials, also with some political party leaders and also other stakeholders. Beyond your concern about post-election violence, are there other concerns?
Well, I think there are, you know, in a country of this size, with the logistical challenges involved in conducting elections, there are obviously going to be challenges. I mean, I think it is frankly remarkable how much preparation has gone into for this very complex election. We've had numerous discussions with INEC, who have assured us that from the logistical point of view, they are very well prepared, and the right ballot papers, polling station equipment, everything will be delivered to the right places at the right time. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see, where the election is still just under a week away. But we've had very strong assurances from INEC that they are well prepared.
All right, thank you for your vote of confidence. Now let's talk about foreign interference, which the president had actually spoken about when he was speaking to some foreign envoys about the importance of staying within the remit of your engagement and not interfering in elections. I'd like you to share with us in terms of the British High Commission's position and the British government's position in this, especially as it pertains to Nigerian elections, because there's a lot of interest from the international world, and very well so in our elections in a few days.
Absolutely, and I understand and respect Nigeria's sovereignty. This is Nigeria's election. This is not the UK's election. So we are here as a committed supporter and long-term friend of Nigeria, and we have a stake in Nigeria's election because a stable Nigeria is good for the world. But that's not interference directly. We will work with whoever wins this election. We've met all the key candidates on numerous occasions, and we've we've given the same message to all of them. We're not backing an individual candidate. We're not interfering in the elections. As I say, we've done everything we can to support the elections. We've been long-standing partners on Nigeria's democratic journey. We've invested heavily in supporting INEC, its processes. We've invested heavily in supporting civil society. It was the UK who provided the support, the technical support through a civil society organisation called PLAC, the Policy Legal Advisory Centre, to do the actual legislative work to enable the Electoral Act to go through. We support YAGA, the Not Too Young to Run campaign, in their Situation Centre, in the parallel vote tabulation they've run. So we're there as absolutely strong supporters of Nigeria's democracies, and we invest in that, and we have a stake in it, but we're absolutely not interfering. This is your election, and it's for the Nigerian people to decide, and we will work with whoever is successfully elected.
Okay. Obviously, with this, your policy decision to withdraw visa from people that will have one or two effects on the election, I'm sure your list will have been full already, because when you look at all of it, there are a lot of people finding the embassy in the public space as we speak, and I'm sure you are taking note, and the UK is taking note as regards this. What would you like to say to people hitting up the polity, talking about possibilities of coups and interim governments and things like that? Because that's also part of heating up the polity and fanning the embers. And there are people that have stated this, and security agents are already talking to. What would you like to say as regards that and say to people like that?
Well, it's the same message, and I will be happy to repeat it, which is it is really important that everyone supports a secure and credible and peaceful election, so that nobody feels intimidated, nobody feels threatened in the run-up to the election and on the day. There's a lot at stake, and we understand, therefore, why emotions can rise and people try sometimes to whip up strong feelings. Those feelings can then translate into violence, and that will be very bad for the citizens of Nigeria and for Nigeria's reputation internationally. So we really don't want to see that happen. There are means of objecting if you feel that something wasn't done credibly, fairly. You have a strong judicial system here, and we just urge all the political party leaders in particular, because they have a responsibility to send to their supporters a very strong message that everyone must behave responsibly on the day. And indeed, of course, the security forces play a hugely important role in creating a peaceful environment, a non-partisan peaceful environment, so everyone feels they can turn up to their local polling station with a happy and a joyful occasion, actually celebrating Nigeria's democracy. So there is no place for hate speak. There's no place for inciting violence. And as I say, we will be watching closely, and we have a bar we have to meet for those who withdraw a visa. But we're watching closely, and we have used these tools before.
Well, Nigeria and the United Kingdom both have decades, years, centuries of diplomatic and cultural relations. Now, this election is a major one. When the election in Nigeria is won and lost, what is likely to be the future priorities for the UK in terms of relationship with Nigeria, depending on the outcome of this election?
Yes, indeed. Well, like most key partners, I will be looking, I think, to deepen and strengthen our partnership post-election. Nigeria faces numerous challenges, economic challenges, security challenges, and the time really has come to tackle these challenges, to take some of the tough decisions. So providing an incoming government is committed to that. We are going to be there, lock, stock and barrel behind, and certainly our ministers are keen to deepen and strengthen the partnership. Our Foreign Secretary James Cleverly gave a very important speech just before Christmas, which talks about the importance of middle ground powers, he called them, and Nigeria is exactly the kind of country he has in mind, where he wants us to have a long-term transformational partnership where we listen very carefully to Nigeria's priorities, we very honestly set out our own, and we try and establish a mutual accountability framework. So we hold each other to account for the commitments that we've made, trade, and we do this at a high level with, I hope to get Foreign Secretary involvement and a regular dialogue, perhaps once every year, where we look across the spectrum of the Nigeria-UK relationship, which goes from security through economics, obviously the massive economic potential. But underpinning all this is our incredibly strong people-to-people links through education, through culture. Nigeria's enormous influence on culture. I think Burna Boy is the biggest downloaded musician in the UK. You have massive influence. So it's a two-way thing. Nigeria's influences UK. So I hope it'll be my successor, sadly. I'll be moving on after 4.5 years, who will be looking to such an exciting time ahead with a deeper and stronger partnership between these two long-lasting friends, UK and Nigeria.
Excellent. So speaking, and thank you very much for your service to Nigeria and your time here as British High Commissioner. But I'd like you to speak further about this relationship, the relationship between Nigeria and the UK and deepening this relationship. In 2022, you launched the Developing Countries Trading Scheme, a part of the UK's intervention with partnering with countries like Nigeria. And come 25th of February 2023, we will be electing a new president. What are some of I know you're leaving very soon, but there must be some plan with regards to how you hope to work with the new president to strengthen or further strengthen relationships between Nigeria and the UK.
Yes, well, you mentioned trade, which is a classic area where there are mutual benefits. So the UK is very proud of our new developing country trading scheme, which is going to provide much better duty-free access to our markets. So people in the past who've had to pay duty on processed agricultural products will now be able to export duty-free. We recognise, though, that having that access is necessary but not sufficient. So we'll be looking to provide Nigeria with the support it needs to meet the regulatory standards, the phytosanitary standards that set quite a high bar to export to not just the UK but to the European Union and others. So we'll provide the support. There's so much massive potential here. You don't need me to say it. Your agro-processing potential you've hardly scratched the surface. But the quid pro quo of this and what our companies tell us, over and over again, is that we need Nigeria to tackle the fundamentals have to be right. You need to remove the fuel subsidy, which is draining the fiscus. You need to deal with the multiple exchange rate problem. Excuse me, I've got a little bit of a cough. I'll just pause for a moment.
Yes, you can take a moment and then respond when you're settled. Thank you. Just a moment, and then we can come back to respond to the question. All right, we've had the British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Ms. Catriona Laing, and we're speaking about the UK's commitment to a credible election in Nigeria. February 25, we go to the polls for the presidential and National Assembly elections, and 11th of March, we go to the polls for the governorship and State House of Assembly elections. And we're speaking now post-election as to the UK's relationship with Nigeria and how to further strengthen that with the incoming administration. Ms. Laing, are you ready? Okay. All right. So we'll continue this conversation. We have a few more minutes to discuss the policy with regards to visa restrictions for politicians who incite violence, and this does not exclude British Nigerians living in Nigeria, as we also heard that even security agents and other arms of other citizens will come under this restriction. I believe we have Ms. Laing back.
Yes, apologies. I'm afraid I've gone down with a bit of a cold. I think it's the Hamilton.
Yes, it is. It's okay. Thank you.
I was just saying, on the trade and investment side, the Developing Country Trading Scheme provides the opportunity for Nigeria to increase its exports duty-free. We'll provide the support to enable Nigerian companies to meet the standards. But a lot of what our companies say, and there are many British companies who are still here, hoping for this turnaround and opportunity in Nigeria, the fundamentals have to be right. You need a stable macro environment. That means the fiscal side needs to be tackled. The famous fuel subsidy, which is draining the fiscus, preventing investment in education and health. All the political parties, the presidential candidates have told us they will remove that quickly when they come to office. We hope they will. The various multiple exchange rates and the fact it's so difficult to get foreign exchange. So it's really difficult for an importer to come, an investor to come in here if they don't have assurance they can get their foreign exchange out when they generate revenue. So these things are crucial for Nigeria. A stable macro environment, above all, will be the thing that will drive many British companies who are looking for opportunities in this huge market with this amazing talent of young people to employ here, but the fundamentals need to be right. So that's an area where we'll set out clearly what we think Nigeria needs to do, but what we can offer in return to drive two-way trade and investment to boost Nigeria's enormous economic potential.
Real quickly, how can companies be part of the scheme? So take, for instance, a Nigerian company, I want to export to the UK sesame seeds, for instance. What are the processes I will go through to be able to be part of this scheme?
So please just contact the British High Commission. We'll put you in touch with our Trade Department, Department for International Trade. You can set out very clearly what the requirements are. As I say, the access is there. So if you're an exporter now and you meet the standards in, for example, sesame, you would be able to export to the UK tariff-free. But as I mentioned, we recognise that for a lot of companies, agricultural companies, they also need to do some work to reach the phytosanitary standards that we require in order to benefit from the Developing Country Trading Scheme. But get in touch with our team, the Department for International Trade, through the British High Commission, and we will help you and set you on track for that, for access to the scheme.
Well, thank you, Ms. Catriona Laing, British High Commissioner to Nigeria. Thank you very much for your support.